Hello, all. Welcome to the sixth episode of uh, Coaching Gupshup with
Great.
Smita and Kiwa. Kiwa, like, yay to us.
Yay. Seriously, yeah, this is
So
so good.
it's like we catch up for these short conversations on a Friday, but when it's getting recorded, like you have to get ready and you have to show up to get yourself on the camera. The
So we get
conversations
ready every day. We get ready every day.
we do, but Fridays are special
Special.
special for us. All
True.
right. So today's topic is psychological safety. And before we come to that topic, very happy International Women's Day to all of you lovely ladies and men watching this. We just launched our wonderful campaign, Beyond Labels, and some activity on that is going on social media. So whoever has got the chance to take a look at that video and the post, do feel, and if we have not tagged you, apologies for that, but feel free to feel yourself included, a part of the campaign. You are very much a part of our community, so feel free to post any of your thoughts, comments, anything that you stand for. We really appreciate and welcome that.
Absolutely. Let's go beyond labels today and every day.
Yeah, today, every day, every situation, right?
Every place. Absolutely. So,
So let's get started with today's topic on psychological safety. And when I'm just reflecting on this topic, which is so important for high performing teams, for good culture, for better relationships, all of these come to my mind as I'm thinking about psychological safety. Kiva, any thoughts from you before we deep dive into our gupshup?
I was actually thinking about beyond labels and psychological safety. Like when we all came up with the hashtag beyond labels, there was this joy that all of us felt and experienced, right? Which was you're not defined by anything outside of yourself. It is who you believe you are, and you celebrate that. And I felt this sense of actual safety, in knowing that there is a space where people feel the need for this, feel the need in the sense, feel happy to create this kind of a space for themselves and for more people around. And
Yeah,
as we were just talking about it right now, I'm like, isn't that what psychological safety is really about?
yeah, absolutely. It's like I think it's definitely contagious, and for leaders are made and not born, right? And it doesn't really need for one to be at a particular level to invite the culture of creating a psychological safety, to embrace the culture for creating a psychological safe space. So I think at whatever level we are in the systems that we are a part of, I think all of us, have the capability to induce the culture of creating a psychological safe space.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And I really liked what you said. It's not about being in a leadership position. I feel the very fact that you exist in the world and you are in connection with another individual, maybe at home, maybe in your friend circle, at work, the larger ecosystem that we are a part of, through how we perceive ourselves and the world around us, we can build that safety, right? It has nothing to do with the role that you are in. So for instance, it doesn't have to be, let's say, a head of the family, as we say. It's not just that person's responsibility to create that safety,
So,
right? Like siblings can create safety for each other,
yeah.
and so on and
So
so
beyond
forth.
labels,
Beyond labels completely.
beyond labels. Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah.
Project Aristotle by Google. I think that is when I heard first about psychological safety, and it's like they did research for 5 years to, and with the question that what makes teams better. And while there were other answers like, having clarity on their goals, teams being, dependable on each other, of all the other points, psychological safety was the most important. And it's very recent that I got introduced to this word. Like, trust is something that we've heard that it's so important in teams and relationships and high performing teams. But psychological safety was, when Google did this project, and when I was introduced and became part of this coaching world, is where I came to know and understand this, much better. So in a moment, I'll just come to the distinction between trust and psychological safety. But Kiva, when did you, hear about this, and what was your experience?
So I think as a term, again, I think maybe just a few years back, maybe when I started working and was in a work culture is when I first heard of the term as the term. But I do feel like when I now look back, there have been so many instances where the need has existed, and it's not something that came in only once people started working. Maybe because you're an adult and you experience a lot of those things in a different light and you process them differently. So they are out there now. But I feel like it all starts from the time you're born, right? Do you feel safe inside your own home? Do you feel safe in the ecosystems where you're in, be it your school, your friend circle, to then maybe college and work? So I was just thinking that maybe as a term, I learned about it only when I started working, but it has somewhere, not in exactly these words, but been there in my mind, I think since I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think of psychological safety, like what do you think are certain components that define this term?
And exactly, I was just thinking on this point on the distinction between trust and safety. While I am a big fan of Amy Edmondson, and her book Fearless Organization has been an amazing book, and I always used to think that she's talking about psychological safety, and the subject of the the name of the book is Fearless, right? And that has to do with psychological safety and fear are so closely connected. So when I'm thinking about this, the term trust, so it's always about for the other, right? Like, you trust the other, whereas psychological safety is for our own selves. And both of them are interlinked in a way that, if I don't, trust my own team, for example, I'll not feel psychologically safe to open up, and thereby there cannot be, so it's trust. So it's like quite intertwined, but at the same time, both of it has its own role to play as well. So I think the components really are that how can I, allow the other person to openly share their questions, yeah, not feel humiliated by either a verbal or a non-verbal expression, right? So I think this I feel as most important, and maybe so. What are your thoughts on this?
I think firstly, definitely very interesting, and I hadn't thought about it in that way, because at times it's like, oh, I don't trust, so I don't feel safe, and vice versa. So it's yeah, it's a very interesting way to look at psychological safety. And I'm just trying to also think of, when we think of components, one of the words that came to me was a space of non-judgment. And I do think as humans, judgment will come. Conscious, like subconsciously, it's coming, stemming from our beliefs or certain things that we have valued all along, right? So how is it that a person can then suspend that judgment in that moment? Because you have to train your mind to do it, and it's nobody's fault, right? Because if you've been a part of an environment for so long and you valued something for so long, and something from the outside comes, you also get threatened, right? So it's not that you want to create that psychologically unsafe place for the other, but you yourself are feeling kind of threatened, is the word that I used. So how is it that one can actually then go about it? Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So it's like the judgments come, and how do you kind of manage those judgments so that that doesn't lead to creating a psychologically unsafe space for the people to open up. That's such a beautiful question to reflect on and to become aware of, like catching our own selves when something like this happens, right? Like in our own team setups, Kiva, I think when we meet people and we are observing, right? Like I think we are aware about it now, and we are observing people as to how do we respond, and how do how is it that that response lands on them. So I'm very mindful, and I observe this. Have been very sensitive towards it. You and I, we were having a chat about how it starts from our early stages from school, right? So and you were sharing some good points on that. Why don't you start from there, and then we come to the teams part.
Yeah, so I think so I've gone to many schools growing up, but I like remember this one school that I went to where I had a terrible experience. I feel like the 3 years when I was in that school, I think feel psychologically unsafe literally every day. It was because it's like you don't belong in a particular place, but you are there, and I think it's what the system valued, and it's not who you are, right? And I think as a kid, at least, I did not have that level of awareness to say this is who I am. And I mean, I don't think I even thought so much, right? You just feel like, oh, like you're not a part of this, and no matter how much you try, you'll not be a part of it because the system values something else, right? And so growing up, I always thought, and that had a huge impact in my life, as an adult as well, because I always noticed that uh, I had this need to really not reject anyone or not cut people out, okay, for the longest time, right? And you don't realize how it manifests for the good and for the bad, right? In one way, you become very inclusive and you want to create that safety for people, but you also then forget your own boundaries, that okay, there are certain needs that you also have, right, which also have to be taken care of by the other party, right? So I feel like psychological safety, like systems, play a huge role in it, because I think systems give out messages continuously, right? And I think a system's responsibility is to have a space for every voice.
Yeah.
And just because a system exists, that responsibility goes. It's like, like with power comes responsibility. You cannot like say you are such a huge system and then there's no responsibility, because then the system is completely faulty. All systems are faulty, but I think a system where somebody can feel unsafe is completely wrong. Like it should not even exist.
Yeah, that's
you
that's
know?
wonderful sharing. I'm also just thinking about the childhood days, and then I'm thinking that how those actually make us as we are growing into adults, and how do we kind of use those experiences and make it into our beingness and then spread it. But now as adults, and now that we are aware, right, how do we operate from that space of awareness now? It's very difficult to old habits die hard, all of us, we know. But how, now that we are aware, like consciously, what small little changes can we do in order to see the change that we want to see? So when I'm thinking about, what change can I do? Like there are times when, I'm feeling stressed, or I'm tired, my day is packed, there's back to back, it needs a little more, patience. It needs a little more grounding. And at that time, when you're hearing to a point which to your work is a bit irrelevant, right? Like somebody from the team, say for example, is making a point which is currently to me is irrelevant. How do I just ground myself, take that question, need not process it to answer, but process it to acknowledge, to say that right now my plate is full and I'm dealing with A B C D E, and can I park your point for the next conversation? And can you bring it up again to the next conversation? So I feel in order, and this is such an important point about communicating, right? Like the other person maybe is not understanding that, that I'm going through all of this. Or when it's also with the seniors, right? Like we don't understand what's going with them. So it's like if we are told, we are aware about what's going on, then we feel safe to say that, and safe to say that my voice matters. It's just that right now that's not the priority.
As you were sharing, I was thinking about three things. One was just the aspect of understanding the other person's need and not dismissing it. Right? You know where the other person is coming from. It just doesn't align where the priorities probably lie right now, but the need from where it's coming has not been dismissed. Right?
Absolutely.
And so the respect still stays. And then through communication, the safety net that is needed gets created.
Yeah.
Because if we don't close the loop, keeping in mind that I've heard you, and I understand where it's coming from and really appreciate. I was actually just thinking about the Coacharya model, Lassie. It's actually, I just realized it's actually shared all of that, right? Listen, acknowledge.
Exactly.
Share. Yeah. And then I think, and I think when you communicate it, the other person understands the intention behind the sharing. And I think every time the intention is pure and it's something that comes from a place of respect, I think that safety is created.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we you said belongingness and communication, and with in Amy Edmondson's one of the sharing, she was talking about that how she, before her research, she thought that better teams make fewer mistakes. And through the research and the findings, it really came out that it's not like better teams make fewer mistakes. It's just that the mistakes are needs to be highlighted. Better teams are more, they communicate more, and then the mistakes are highlighted. And so better teams not make fewer mistakes, better teams make more mistakes. And it is about accepting, if I'm provided a safe space, right, and I can boldly come and say that I did this mistake. I'm looking for working for a team like that, creating a team like that, where people don't have to stop themselves from saying that, look, I did this, and I'm ready to kind of do whatever it takes or needs to sort it out. Let's work together, right? And I think and that again is connected to the first the point about communication. I think when it is about that open communication within the teams, it is when mistakes will be admitted.
And I mean, mistakes are inevitable, right? And I think the psychological safety part of it is how the system, the team, the organization views mistake. If it is seen as something that like how in design thinking, like the concept is that for you to like grow faster and for the team to perform better, make as many mistakes in the first phase so that you quickly learn and then you move to the next part faster. Right. So you continuously keep innovating. So I think when mistakes are not even seen as like something big, it's just seen as a part of the process to learn faster. And it's celebrated as, okay, we have a new finding because of this mistake.
Okay. I actually, you said that beautiful word, innovation, Kiva. Most of the organizations have their, one of the leadership principle as, cultivate innovation and, and have a innovative environment. So when people don't mistakes and, don't learn from the mistakes, it's like, they're holding back. So people are not coming up with new ideas or new thoughts or new suggestions. That means, that's a reason for an alarm to say that what is it missing that, that these things are not happening.
Correct. So, Smita, I'm thinking if within a team, how would you know that culturally people are feeling psychologically unsafe? What do you think are signs?
somebody who maybe is talking less, participating less, or um, not owning the work, like it's about the other or something. The lack mindset. I think in one of the previous episodes you used that word. If constantly the other members are able to see an opportunity in crisis, and one particular person is not able to see an opportunity in the crisis, or not able to open up, or feels shy, or engages in negative in negativity, maybe all these are signs and symptoms, and that's just my experience and observation.
Mm. I think I'll add one more. It's fear, right? That if I say something, it'll be seen as this, right? Or it is if I make a mistake, this will happen. Because it could be coming from past experiences. But I think when one observes this kind of a trend, it means the person is probably not even taking those chances because they don't have, and it could come across as, oh, the confidence is low, or the ideas the person has seem limited. But it could be stemming from something deeper, which is maybe a fear that the only time I should speak is when the idea is excellent, or the only time I should take up a project is when I feel fully confident that I'll succeed in this, because otherwise it'll backfire. But as we know, for any team, for any project, anything we work on, it's only when you're in it and you're experiencing the challenges and you experiment and you innovate, like we said a while back, is when the project actually moves forward towards desired outcomes. So I think psychologically creating that space becomes essential so that people take that first step forward. You'll not know all the answers at the start, and so yeah, that's something I was thinking about. So how do you see coaching as a way for us to, or if you've experienced this for yourself, how have you seen coaching help you to create a psychologically safe space for yourself and for others around you?
I think that's about the here and the now. It's in order for me to be present fully in the conversation with whoever the conversation is, the presence and the listening, right? Like I think both of it, ICF definitely has one competency on trust and safety. I think presence is something which I really feel that in order for my presence to be absolutely there, what is it that I need to dismiss and make absent, right? So some of these I feel that a deliberate practice in terms of to increase the presence, maybe like you said about the point on judgments, operating from the space of saying that I know it all kind of an attitude, and also judging the other person, right? Like each of us are evolving, right? Like and every day, every minute, there is some kind of a learning, and we are evolving as humans. So it's like when the team, it's the same thing, right? Like if a team member, we are seeing it in a particular way, but maybe today they are like that, and tomorrow we can be something else. So how do I cultivate to be as less judgmental as possible? Like how do I be more in the moment? And that will definitely have a good effect on my listening, because I'm listening to the person then very holistically and systemically. It's not just about with those, once the judgments drop, I'm able to see the person with a new perspective, with a new lens, and something good and better will evolve. So
True.
What about you?
As a result of what you shared, I think a person's response changes, right? You really stop reacting. And when the other knows that there's not going to be a reaction, but it'll be a well thought out response based on what I share, I think people start feeling safe in communicating.
Are you able to think of any example where something big happened? Like naturally maybe we would react to it, but deliberately you chose to respond, and that helped the other person? Like, are you able to think of any example?
I'm actually just thinking about small examples because I think it's what happens in a daily this thing. Like, for example, I remember a few days back on the team, somebody had missed attending a particular event, right? And on the team group, people were asking if this happened or not. So there was this sudden reaction that, yeah, it happened. And the person realized, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I missed it. So I think could have responded by saying it, like it's such an, because I think the other person also knows how important, let's say, a particular meeting or a particular part of the system is. But we are humans and we will make those errors, So, like, I remember just saying that sometimes it happens, but let's be careful next time, versus like, how could this happen? I mean, I'm just giving this as an example of like a recent example when I experienced that myself. Because I mean, like we discussed a while back, right? Mistakes are going to happen, and I'm full of mistakes. I make so many mistakes every day, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are work in progress, and like Amy Edmondson says, better teams are not someone who does less mistakes but more mistakes. So it's just that how do we learn from it, and how do we openly create a safe space to call it out. One other, important element, Kiva, I think, is about appreciation, and I feel that is such a key thing again. Like, it's good to, and it's easy to appreciate an employee who is doing very well, right? Like, who's a performer. It's very easy to appreciate the person. I'm just wondering, small appreciations, micro moments to appreciate a person who, say, for example, is an average performer or a low performer, and if they achieve something, and we find that opportunity to kind of recognize it and appreciate it, what will that have an impact of?
I agree. I think appreciation, celebration. I think if we focus more on those aspects, rather than mistakes, because I think there's learning there as well, right? If we are celebrating something, means we've done something right, and that's something that should be taken forward in as many ways as possible. So, yeah, I think a person would feel accepted, right?
Yeah.
So,
Great. Anything else that comes to your mind that we can talk about?
I don't know. I'm just thinking a little about when you said appreciation, like how comfortable do people feel in appreciating themselves? And this is something that I think is coming from the Beyond Labels campaign as well, right? Like opening up a space and encouraging people to look within and appreciate themselves. Because I think psychological safety, like we said, right, goes both ways. It's the system and what others create for you, and you too need to create something for yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And that could be like looking at yourself in positive light. I think something that Minakshi, I think, had shared really has stayed with me. Like, be the heroine of your life, not the victim. So instead of saying, oh, this is happening to me, that is happening to me, how can you say, hey, I'm this and I'm that, and I bring this forward into
Yeah.
the spaces where I interact.
Absolutely. And maybe, like, of course, victim is maybe, the other extreme. It's also that somebody considers that as being humble while not accepting it. Right?
Yeah,
Like the acceptance, there is a boundary there, because it feels like, I want to be humble, and that comes across as
absolutely.
non-acceptance. So that is great. All right. Is there any other important point? While you were sharing this, something um, I had some point in my head, and I just kind
I
of
have a point.
go ahead.
I was thinking how important it all comes down actually to voicing out. At times, let's say a person thinks that they have created a psychologically safe space, maybe based on what they value or what they have perceived are the needs of others. But the other, if doesn't feel that way, they need to voice it out.
Mm,
And if they don't like psychological safety cannot be, I think, a one-way process. It has to come from the other side as well. And then how that is seen, understood, and then heard is what will cause that safety. Because I think sometimes the intention might be there, but maybe you're not aware that it's still not causing that kind of safety that people need. So, and voice in general plays such a big role in this.
Yeah. So calling it out when
Yeah,
you see a
yeah.
or
And maybe let's say somebody does something and they're not even aware of it, or they are aware, either way, right? Knowing that I still have the power, no matter what system I'm in,
yeah.
to raise it. I think it first starts from there. And when that doesn't happen, that's when the spiral starts, right? Like that's when either the systems change, where people begin to realize that, oh yeah, what this person is saying makes sense and we need to make certain tweaks, or you feel even more unsafe. And so you get even more scared and then you kind of don't voice things out, but I think it's that experience that you're having within that needs to kind of be expressed in the way that you think your system will you know will help in making the safe space, the space safer for everybody else around. So
Yeah.
like voice, I think, plays a huge role in this.
Absolutely. And it's like, to create a culture where you talked about that mistake, it's like, how did you deal with that mistake, right? Like the learnings from the mistake needs to be there, but are you amplifying to a level where the person feels humiliated and, guilty is again, being in that space is again that emotion really that doesn't allow the person to maybe the person would have just lost concentration on the work for the rest of the day. We don't know the impact of it's great that we are realizing that how do we handle such situations when there is a mistake, and instead of humiliating, can it be made into a learning experience?
Yeah, like there's this quote, right, by someone, I think Tom Petty, that says, "You belong somewhere where you feel free." And I think when people have that freedom and they feel free, that's where like miracles happen, right? People really go and create something amazing for themselves and everybody around. So I feel that freedom is important, and it comes from a place of fear, right? Let's say if there is a boss who doesn't feel very confident and they have a team member who's very clear about things they want to achieve, that fear can, like, and it's all playing out subconsciously, right, can cause maybe the boss to put the person's ideas down or not take those ideas up. So like, but if you can reverse it and say, okay, we are a team, you have an idea, you shine, it doesn't matter, you shine, let's all of us, uh, but yeah, it takes two to a tango. So yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I think, we very good conversation again with you, Kiva. Very good cup shop with you on this such a good topic. So, listeners, like, if you have any thoughts on psychological safety and what do you do in your organizations to bring in the culture of creating a safe space for your teams, please do share with us. We'll be very happy to hear your thoughts and perspectives. Any other, resources which you feel that might help the community, please do feel free to share with us. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great day and a happy weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.